Okay, we're going to get started with today's topic. First, I'm Neil McDonnell. I'm with the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I do these daily LinkedIn Lives as a way to bring you process and procedure tips for success in the federal market. I was a small business owner for 20 years doing similar type of stuff, and for the last 4 or 5 years with the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. And when we follow that process, it'll lead to success. Today's training topic or tip around why FOMO, or fear of missing out, hurts small businesses in the federal market. It really comes down to this line: when you chase 2 rabbits, you're not going to eat dinner tonight. And what it means is, if you're going to eat rabbit stew, chasing 2 rabbits has you constantly turning and trying to go. If you chase one, you go after it, you eventually catch it. Now, if you're a vegetarian, you can think about chasing strawberries or something. I don't know what the example is for vegetarian, but I'll get to that one. So today, one of the things I wanted to start with was just understanding, what do I mean by fear of missing out, right? And I'm going to come back to that through this topic, but fear of missing out is, Amit, that's a great, sorry, I just noticed his chat there. It's perfect. Data and AI, that'll stick in my head. Hey, I know GNS, Amit does data and AI, which is ironically, I'm talking about focus. So let me hide the chat so I don't see the chat anymore. And now I'm not looking at the chat. Okay, fear of missing out is this idea that if I'm going after something over here, but I'm not paying attention to what's over here, then I fear that I'm missing out on something that's over here. So, in the casual term, right, out in the industry, we always have this fear of missing out. I didn't go to this party. It's a social media phenomenon, right? FOMO has been around forever, but it really has been coined as a phrase that become part of the language. As people started putting stuff up on Facebook and Instagram or whatever, and we see what other people are doing. And I have this fear of missing out that, oh my God, look how great their life is. I'm not living that life. I feel like I'm missing out on that life. It's a problem when people just watch Kim Kardashian and the Kardashians live their life, do whatever they do, and we look and we go, oh, that's how life should be. I have this fear of missing out on how life could be so great for me. The problem is you're looking at somewhere else and feel like you're missing out on that instead of looking right here. Another way you might think about this is that the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. And the reality is that's 100% true. And if you jump over on the other side of the fence, look at it, and turn around and look at yours will look greener than the one you're standing in, your neighbor's yard. And the reason is because when you're looking over the fence at this kind of angle, you're looking at the grass and all you're seeing is the green tips. But when you jump over the fence and you're walking around, you're like, oh, there's all these brown patches in there. I don't want my neighbor's yard. My grass looks greener. And then you jump over, right? When you're worried about fear of missing out, or the other side of the fence being better off than where you're at, then you're not doing everything you can to just take care of your own yard, to live your own life, or in the professional sense, right, to do our own work in the spots we choose. And there's 2 areas that I want to talk about as it relates to that. One is fear of missing out on an agency. If I chase DHS, for example, I'm going to miss out on DOD. And actually, those are way too high, right? Those are big departments. And the other, though, is the type of work you do. So I'm not looking at chat anymore, but you guys can see that Amit commented on there that his company does data and AI. I know previously he has been putting down many more words for what his company does. And part of the reason might be that he's worried that people will just think he only does data and AI. It's so much more, right? I have a friend who's doing cybersecurity, same kind of thing. I got to put every cybersecurity thing because they're all important. I get it. But when you focus down, people like me can begin to remember what you do, and your marketing efforts begin to really tighten up around, in Amit's case, data and AI. Once he's in the door, whether it's in the door with a teaming partner or door of an agency, he can then say, hey, Neil, by the way, we do so much more than data and AI, artificial intelligence. And the way I describe it is your capability statement might say data and AI, right? It's that focused. And then when you get into do a capability briefing and you're actually beginning to have more conversations, then you can expand a little bit. Well, it's not just data, right? It's data analytics, and it's really helping you bring in that disparate data. But before you bring that data in, you need to analyze it and you need to be able to scrub it. You don't want to bring garbage data in. So we go out to where the data is sourced and bring it back, right? I mean, if you're not in the data space, that's okay, but you can imagine what it's like. You can, once you're inside, you can expand upon your expertise. I wanted to pause for a second. I say FOMO, right? FOMO's to me I don't know the right term, but it's like a personal term, Facebook, right? If I think of Facebook as a personal social media platform, I look at LinkedIn as a professional social media platform. FOMO fits on the Facebook side of the house, Instagram. We borrowed it and brought it into our world because people know what it means. And so we just say it. But another way of thinking of this is opportunity cost. When you're, if you're speaking in MBA or finance language or leadership language of a business, and we have this term called opportunity cost. And the idea of opportunity cost is that we don't worry, but we look at something we're about to do and say, well, what's the opportunity cost? What will we lose or not be able to do because we've made this decision to do something else? So an example is, let's say you run a company and it's got 50 people. And in that company, you say, you know what, this year we're going to spend $100,000, $200,000, whatever it is, on brand new desks and chairs for everybody. We're just going to replace everything and get these modern tables that are kind of cool, and they've got little mini or half cubicle walls to them, things like that. So we're going to invest $100,000 or $200,000 in that activity. And if you've got about 50 people, that's a reasonable investment you might make in a office infrastructure build out or improvement. But what's the opportunity cost? One potential opportunity cost is that instead of spending that money on tables and chairs, you could have spent that on additional education for the 50 people in your company. You could have sent them all to a professional development training that moves them all forward. Maybe all 50 of you could have gone to a time management or a project management type or task management type course where all 50 of you are beginning to improve the culture around time management. And I don't mean show up to work on time and leave on time, but I mean, how do we focus on the most important things? How do we really get done in this company what we want, and everything else can be second, whatever it is, something like that. You could also do that and then send each one of these people to a conference of their choice. $2,000 at 50 people, that's only, 100,000, right? So or whatever that is. And, when you look at sending them to a conference, they can go out and learn. They will be so much, perhaps, healthier and happier employees because they appreciate you sending them and you caring enough to send them to the conference of their choice. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as you think it has value to what we do here, you can go to it. So the opportunity cost of investing in tables and chairs is that you miss out on, investing in people. Well, if you think about it from a sales perspective in the federal market, if I say I'm going to go after this agency, then maybe I'm missing out on, I'm thinking to myself, fear of missing out on this agency. So I use Navy and HHS or DOD and HHS as an example. But let's bring this down to just Department of Health and Human Services. In there's CDC and there's National Institutes of Health. So the NIH and CDC as an example. If I choose to go to CDC, then I have FOMO about missing out on NIH. But if I accept that I can focus on CDC, I can dig down there. You can build a $10 million revenue stream annually. And by the way, if you don't have any money, then you'll have to take longer to get there. But you can build a $10 million revenue stream just from CDC, just from NIH, or just from CMS, which is in HHS as well. I have a friend who has a $100 million company, and almost all of his revenue, over 90%, is in CMS, right? He's making all his money there because he chose to focus. He has become very well respected within the entire organization. Senior leaders who have been working with him for the last 20 years are now, they were juniors, and he and his company were mentoring them as they began to grow in their career. Now they're in senior positions. He has past performance that is very trusted. He has deep insight of that organization, that agency under HHS. And so that focus has allowed him to be able to pursue and win more opportunities. Could he go after other opportunities? Sure. And I'm going to talk about this in a second, but he should still stick within HHS. He shouldn't even waste his time going over to the Army, as an example. Why go over to the Army when you have got such a presence here? And when we have FOMO, fear of missing out of opportunities in one area, then it limits us from digging deep into the areas we can. So it's funny, I put down a couple of examples in here, but I wanted to tell one story about the 8A program that really, it drives home a lot of what shaped my opinion on this. I've always been a focus on a goal, drive towards it and get it. But as my experience has grown over the last, 10, 20 years, 20 plus years, as my experience has grown, I've looked at other whole groups of businesses that are having challenges around areas that I'm intuitively understanding to be a problem. So an example is the 8A program. The 8A program has about 5,000 businesses in there at any given point. And it's a small business administration program to help these particular, and generally it's minority owned businesses, these businesses develop the skills and the experience over a 9-year period to be ready to have a sustainable business. The whole idea of the 8A program is to sit there and help you build a business. It's a business development program. The woman-owned small business program is not a business development program. Neither is the Hub Zone, neither is the SDVO. Those are just set-aside categories where 8A, the whole program is designed around how do we train these businesses and help them grow. The problem is most of them don't succeed. So many, half, let's say, don't make any money at all. And then many of the ones that get to that 9-year point and graduate revert all the way back to where they were before they got into the 8A program. So down to a very low revenue stream. You can look in USA spending and see this, where you look at an 8A company, they come in, or I guess I'm on this side, right? They come in, they get in the 8A program, you start seeing their revenue go up, and then it comes right back down. And one of the reasons, right? I don't want to say this is the only reason, but one of the reasons is a lack of focus. Two areas that they don't focus on. And it's partly because of the way the program is built. It's encouraging and rewarding a lack of focus. And I don't mean to pick on the 8As. It's just so easy to see it in a broad group of thousands of businesses. One thing that happens in the 8A program is that many people, business opportunity specialists in the small business administration who work with 8As, contracting officers, et cetera, many of those people actually really do want to support the 8A. And so these 8As get opportunities. The problem is they get invited to come support the Department of Education. Here's a contract over here in the Department of the Army. Here's one over here in DHS. Here's one over here in EPA and Department of Energy. And you often see 8As graduating where they have multiple 10, 20 agencies that they're doing work at. And so that lack of focus means when they come out, they don't have any subject matter expertise on that agency. Remember, I told you about my friend who's at CMS. If you asked him about DOD, he'd be like, I don't know, defense, right? That's what it is. Like, he would be so disconnected from that. But he knows CMS through and through. And CMS is a huge spender. He put his eyes on that and said, I'm going to go in and I'm going to get to know every one of the major offices within CMS, Centers for Medicaid Services or something, right? CMS. And I'm going to get to know all the offices. I'm going to get to know the leaders, the influencers. I'm going to find the people who are related to the work that I'm doing. And as we go forward, my team and I are going to continue to build relationships. One of the things I think I put into the LinkedIn post about today's event is that we get caught up in 8As in particular do this. We get caught up in starting a lot of relationships. But if you don't focus, how can you truly build those relationships, right? If I was dating one person, I could build a relationship because the farther in that relationship I go, the more about their life I would begin to understand. I would know more about their family and their dreams, et cetera. But if I'm dating 2 people or 5 people or 10 people or hundreds of people, how can I possibly, 1, get to know any of them really well, and 2, remember any of those details? But if I focus on an area like CMS, then I'm able to understand that. So the second area of focus with 8As that are representative. And when I'm telling this story, I want you to be thinking about yourself and your own company and your own activities. Am I focused on a single agency to really drive forward, right? I don't mean to say you can never think about other agencies, but your primary job, right? If you woke up every day and said, what am I doing today? What's my number one thing? My number one thing better always be with my primary agency. We'll come back to that in a second. But the second one for 8As in particular that you see is that because these people who are supporting the 8A program all throughout the government, whether it's in the SBA or in agencies, et cetera, because they're inviting them to come participate, you'll often find an 8A company that has both an IT contract and a construction contract. And when you ask, they're like, well, I was doing some work here, and the contracting officer said, hey, I got this contract for security guard work. Can you guys do it? And I'm thinking I'm supposed to grab contracts. Sure, I'll outsource it to somebody. That is not a good idea. I've talked in a different video where I say you've got to say no in order to have more yeses. And so an example here is if you're an IT company and an 8A and they offer you a construction project, say, oh, I really, really appreciate that. That's not going to fit with what we're able to do, but can I come in and talk to you more about what we do? Can I reinforce that you can work with me and my company over and over again, but stick it to the IT space? Maybe I expand my IT to say data and analytics, artificial intelligence, cloud computing. But how about we stay out of airport paving? Because that's not really my business. Unless, of course, you're in construction, then you want to go that direction. So these 8A firms, they get offered a lot of businesses or a lot of contracts that are diverse in competency or core competency, right? And so when they get to the end of the program and they're trying to get the next contract, buyers look at them and say, well, you don't have any focus. But if they had stayed focused on cloud computing, if they had stayed focused on airport paving and airport security management, well, then every buyer would be able to go, not only do I know what you do, but I also see these past performances time and again, 5, 10, 20, 30 past performances that are all in the airport paving, airfield paving business, right? And that's what I'm trying to encourage you to do is don't think that, and bring this down, right? If you're in IT, don't feel like if you're saying you do cloud, that you'll miss out on the data side or the artificial intelligence side or the cybersecurity side. If you say cloud and if you come down and say, hey, we're the best at AWS. In fact, our core project area is Amazon Web Services. That's a cloud service provider. We help migrate you from legacy data center type environments to the Amazon Web Services cloud so that you can save lots of money. If you start doing that, all of us will know that's what you do. And when you come in and have the second meeting, maybe even in the first meeting, but the second meeting, you go, by the way, Neil, I do, a course when we do the migration, we're doing business analysis and requirements development. We're doing data when we're looking at all these apps that are going to migrate to the cloud. We're doing software development, and we better put a zero trust cybersecurity model around that development. So if I say all that in the beginning, the person's confused. But if I just say cloud and AWS, then I'm going to reach the people who do cloud, and those people will probably also buy all these other things I want to talk about. So I'm looking down at my clock just to track to see how I'm doing on time. Anyways, as I talk about the 8A firms and this unfortunate problem many run into when they graduate out of the 9-year program is that because they didn't focus on a single agency, they don't have any depth of understanding, knowledge, or experience in that agency. Because they're not focused on a single core competency and they're willing to do whatever the buyer wants, they weren't able to build up a body of experience around a core competency. And I just want you to think about this. What is your primary agency, right? Do you know it in your head? Do you know which agency every day you're going to go, I'm doing at least one thing today on the Army because that's my primary agency? The second question I want you to think about is, what's my core competency? Amit happens to be the guy I'm going to reference today a lot. Congratulations on being the first person to comment. But Amit said data and artificial intelligence. Now, actually, I would tell him that's a little bit. Could he make that, if he turned it into a line, could he say treating data as a strategic asset by using artificial intelligence to deliver information when leaders need it? Something like that, right? But sticking to that same thing, he's data and artificial intelligence. I got that in my head. And because I'm an IT guy, I know he's really a data guy who uses artificial intelligence to make the data information, right? Data is just all this stuff that floats around. When it's useful, it's called information. And so think to yourself, what is your core competency, right? Is it somebody said the other day, and I loved it. It was like sheetrock framing. So they come in and do the framing. Somebody else slaps the sheetrock on. Somebody else might do the plaster, whatever that's called, right? Somebody else comes in and paints. Maybe you're the trimmer. Maybe you're the spray painter who sprays the whole walls, gets it all done. Maybe you're just a cleanup person. Hey, we're phenomenal at prepping a room and unprepping a room, whatever that's called, right? Breakdown. Maybe that's our thing. Well, then I could go to teaming partners and say, that's our space. So, anyways, think about your own. I'd like you to just keep that in mind. The last thing I wanted to just put in your head is this idea. When I say focus down on an agency, I think you already know what I mean when I say on a core competency. You're like, okay, so we do construction, well, we do framing, or we do painting, right? I kind of use that example. I think you can do that on your own. And that's what I want to see in the comments whenever you, today or any other time you're joining, is always put that core competency. But I wanted to give you a little exercise of understanding of what it really means to focus on an agency, a customer. If you get to know the customer, then you will be able to identify the opportunities. You will be able to influence that customer. You will be able to find all the teaming partners that are necessary to win opportunities, or all the teaming partners for you to sub under to be part of their prime efforts. So when you think about customers, I want you to think of it this way. I was talking with somebody the other day and said, "What's your primary agency?" And they literally did say DoD and. Okay, stop. When you think about a customer, it needs to be big enough that you can make $5 million a year in there, right? So their spend has to be that big. The ones I'm going to give you, it's not a problem at all, right? You don't get it just out of the gate, but as you develop experience and knowledge of that agency, you can forecast achieving that kind of revenue stream. So the first one is Department of Health and Human Services. That's a department. It's one of the biggest departments in the government, but they're too big, right? You can't focus, one person can't really just focus on HHS. They have 11 agencies in there. Each one of these agencies are similar to the entire Department of Education, or the entire Department of Environmental Protection Agency, things like that, right? So Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, has these 11 operating divisions. One of them is NIH, the National Institutes of Health. They are still too big. I would submit, if you're new, if you've got more experience than then you might be able to handle it. But they have 27 component offices, agencies under them. I think they call them centers, institute, things like that. But basically, they have 27 components under NIH that you could be doing business with, that they have enough spend that you could potentially be looking at $5 million a year as you build up your experience, right? It might start off with 100,000, then go to 1 million. You have to grow, right? Business isn't a lottery. And so one of the institutes is called the National Cancer Institute. And I worked with a customer who did build this kind of activity. They were able to get in and help them with a lot of their study work, right? So the National Cancer Institute's not looking for you for construction, but they are looking for you for, professional services type work. So anyways, when you look at HHS, come down and look at one of their components and choose one of them. If you're under $10 million a year, let's say, pick one component and go deep. An example of an HHS component is NIH, like I just said. There's also CDC, right? You heard about that over the last 2-3 years with COVID. Big player in the federal government, lots of money. CMS, I told you about my friend with $100 million a year run rate that he's doing in there. They're a huge spender, huge budget, especially on the data side. There's FDA, right? You heard about them. You heard about HHS pretty much all through COVID. But FDA, right? They're Food and Drug Administration, a lot of spending out there. And then there's Indian Health Services. That's a big one out there. If you're in a hub zone, or if you're a Native American firm or Indian-owned firm, then they have a preference over there. The same way the Department of Veterans Affairs has a preference for veteran-owned firms. So think about that coming down. Which would be your agency? I'll give you one more example. DoD. If you say DoD is your agency, it's too big. Come down. That's the Department of Defense. It's huge, right? Below that is the Department of Navy, Army, Air Force, and then what I call DoD proper. So DoD proper is just all these different things like DISA and DICA and whatever that have their own spend, huge spends. They're basically like the operating divisions of HHS. But anyways, Army, Navy, and Air Force are like, I don't know, almost like HHS to a degree. But if you look at the Navy and come down further, the Navy has 10 buying commands. Just pick one. NAVC, if you looked at NAVC, you could easily build a $10 million company just in there. If you come down below that, NAVC has something called Naval Warfare Centers. And I think there's 10 of those. and they're underwater and surface warfare centers. But Naval Surface Warfare Center Crane, I bet you could build a $5 million business just in there alone. Go look at what GDIT gets from Naval Surface Warfare Center Crane, and you'll look at huge budget contracts that they have out there in the professional services in particular. That's one installation crane, a Naval Surface Warfare Center division or center, that you could build it. If you come down and focus, then you will begin to be able to know everything about them and keep growing. I don't want to say that you can't grow and work in the entire federal government. What I'm saying is watch out for FOMO. If you're worried about missing out on Army and Air Force opportunities because you're focused on the Navy, then you won't get Navy opportunities either. Pick one, start building your revenue and your business right there in that area. Hope this made sense. If it did, give me a thumbs up. I'm going to look to see if there's any quick questions here. Good. I like seeing this workforce and personal development. I'll go check that out. It's funny. Somebody said weeds, and I'm not sure if that was related to like the type of work that's out there. But I hope this made sense. Again, give it a thumbs up if it did, so other people find it. Remember, this week we've got a lot of LinkedIn Lives already scheduled. So go take a look, see which ones might be interesting to you, and sign up for them. Remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next video.